It is 6 p.m. We'll call to order our Planning Commission meeting for June 13th, 2022. Can we get a roll call, please?
Chairperson Nico Isiano.
Present.
Commissioner Gloria Franz. Present. Commissioner Jackie Lopez. Present. With Vice Chairperson Christian Rodriguez absent.
Okay, let's go ahead and do our Pledge of Allegiance. Gloria, would you please lead us in our pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda this evening? Any requests to speak?
There are none.
Okay. And we have minutes for Planning Commission minutes of May 25th, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of May 25th?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes for May 25th.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Chairperson Nico Isiano.
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Franz.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackie Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have study session item 5.1, project consultation for the Concord residential project. Staff?
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge some staff in the room. Our Planning Commission Secretary, you've met her once before, but it's been a while, so I want to reintroduce Jessica Bellman. She's our new Administrative Secretary and the Planning Commission Secretary. And Jessica's been with us 60 days and she's doing a great job. And also in the audience, and we'll be speaking to you shortly, is Manuel Roca. Manuel started with us as a planning technician, was recently promoted to assistant planner, and he's doing great work on for the city, and we're excited to have him in this position. So proceeding to the item, this evening is a project consultation. It is a item that, as we do these are in essence a study session opportunity. It's an early opportunity for the commission and a potential applicant to discuss a project. And it is non-binding, nor is it a public hearing. You can receive public comments if you so wish, if there are any, but it is an opportunity to have the applicant hear from you and for you to hear from the applicant. If I can have the PowerPoint presentation brought up. All right, so this project is the Concord residential project. The applicant is the Concord Indio Inc. And when the applicants speak to you, they may look a little bit familiar because it's the same group that was behind the Crossings project on Avenue 50. If you remember that project, that was a specific plan that the Planning Commission reviewed approximately a year and a half ago and recommended to City Council for approval, and that project was approved. The property in question is approximately 19 and a half acres, and it is currently zoned Country Estates 2 with a Desert Estates neighborhood. As we're going to get into this evening, the general plan designation and the zoning designations are not in alignment at the moment, but the Desert Estates neighborhood is a very low density general plan designation of 1 dwelling unit per acre. So this is the location. It's along Avenue 50 east of Monroe. If you're familiar with the Barcelona development by Beazer Homes, it's immediately west. The blue dot on the map is the location of the property. It currently has a single family residence with some outbuildings on it. And this project, if ultimately goes forward, would see a significant change in the character of this property. So the proposed site plan is a proposal of 104 mixed housing units comprised of 40 single-story duplex units and 64 two-story duplex units. Again, if this sounds a little bit familiar, this is modeled on the Crossings project that the Planning Commission reviewed in the past. Here are some conceptual elevations. These are also drawn from the Crossings project. And you have a one-story and a two-story duplex model. Here's another version of what they're looking at. So in order for this project to proceed, several things will need to happen. First, there will need to be a general plan amendment and zoning amendment for the property. Again, the general plan designation currently is suburban neighborhood and, desert estates neighborhood. And would not allow for the intensity that the applicant is seeking. So the potential general plan designation that the applicant will have to make a formal request for would be suburban neighborhood. The potential zoning designations, this evening, you're going to be reviewing the potential implementing zones for the suburban neighborhood general plan designations. These are known as suburban neighborhood 4 and suburban neighborhood 8, which basically transfers into 4 dwelling units or less, and 5 to 8 dwelling units. The proposed density of the Concord is 5.2 units, dwelling units to the acre, and therefore the applicant would likely want to pursue the suburban neighborhood 8 zoning. Now, as I noted, the zoning that we're talking about, that I'm talking about at the moment, is all contingent on council adoption of the new zoning regulations that you just happen to be having a public hearing on later this evening. So with that, that's the staff presentation. I know the applicant is here and I know that they wanted to do a presentation as well. So Chair, staff would recommend that you invite the applicant to come forward and speak with you and share their presentation. And it's an opportunity for the commission to have an informal discussion with the applicant, answer any questions and give any comments for them to consider as they look to potential next steps. And I believe they are all available virtually at this moment. So thank you.
And Chair, if I may, it looks like Commissioner Rodriguez has joined online. Just wanted to make sure that was noted for the record.
I think this evening, Keith, are you going to take the lead in presenting?
Yes, if that's okay.
We can't hear you, Keith.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm unmuted. Huh.
Still can't hear you.
Okay. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
No,
Nothing? Okay.
still not hearing you.
Okay. Is that any better?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not working.
Okay.
Tom, are you able to speak to your project?
Absolutely. Can you hear me, Kevin?
Oh, we're also having the same issue with him.
I can hear on my end. I think it might be an issue at Chambers.
Are either of you gentlemen,
Oh, interesting.
do you want to?
I'm off of mute,
I'm off of mute as well.
and I can hear Christian, and I can hear Keith.
You can speak, see if we have a technical issue on our end.
Christian, can you let them know that it's a technical issue on their end?
Yeah, I just sent a message on the Zoom.
Okay.
They can't hear me either.
Yeah, give us a minute. We're going to work with our IT.
5-10 recess.
Thank you. Yes, we'll see if our IT staff person can assist us in resolving this issue. Gentlemen, on the virtual, we're going to try to resolve this technical issue. So we're going to take a short break and we will get back together once we have the technical issue figured out. Apologize for this, but thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll call this meeting back to order. Do we want to try again to hear from the applicant, Mr. Christensen?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hey, there we go. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate the time to speak tonight. My name is Keith Christensen. I'm a civil engineer with Christensen and Company at 5225 Canyon Crest Drive, Suite 251, Riverside, California, 92507. I want to thank the Planning Commission for allowing us to present at this study session tonight, and also Kevin and his staff for putting together the PowerPoint that we saw earlier. My PowerPoint isn't too much different, but I can speak to a couple of points and speak to the site plan as well. And I will share my screen at this point in time to start the PowerPoint presentation. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the project is the Concord, and interesting. Okay. Can you guys still see it?
No.
Not yet, Keith.
That's interesting. Okay, let me do it one more time. Let me just.
We see a nice sunset picture, but not your present.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully this stays. The project is the Concord, and the Concord is going to be developed by the same group as you mentioned before that developed the crossings. Tom O'Hara is on the Zoom meeting as well, and I'm sure he can speak to any details regarding this project. This project is located about 2,000 feet east of the intersection of Monroe and Avenue 50. And it's surrounded by Avenue 50 on the north, Barcelona, which is a suburban neighborhood, of Beezer Project to the east, the Plantation Golf Club to the south, and there's a large lot residence next door to the west. We are seeking to proceed with a general plan amendment, change the zone and tentative track map for this particular project. And you'll notice the project that we have on the screen right now. It's taking what we deem to be two of the more popular products from the crossings. There is a single story duplex product, which ranges between roughly 1,550 and 1,800 square feet. And there's also a two-story product, which is in the 1,600 square foot range. We have approximately 20 buildings of the single-story duplex, and then we have 44 of the two-story duplexes on this project. We have a retention basin in the north portion of the project and dog park. It's in the center of the two entries, and we also have a retention basin in the southeast corner of the project. This is to take the 100-year flows from the project and also create a project that contains all its water properly, and also with minimum slopes and sewer to work with this project. We are going to be using 41-foot wide private roads as we did on the crossings. And if you would like to see the product that we have planned for this property, the one-story duplex, as you can see, this one's 1,928 square feet, but that's the larger product that we have. It ranges from the mid 1500s to 1928. There's the elevations, same as the crossings. And we have a two-story duplex, which is in the 1,500 square foot range. It goes up to the mid 1600s. And this also are the elevations that we're using at the crossings, floor plans. So the hope in this meeting tonight is to get feedback from the Planning Commission and some direction so we can take this project to the next level. The owners here, the developers, are very committed to the city of Indio. We've enjoyed working with all staff of the city of Indio. They did a great job getting our Crossings project approved. That particular project has been out to bid. It's about ready to go now. I think ownership has narrowed down who they're going to be using on the project. So hopefully that goes well and this project can go right behind it, and they'll have two projects going on Avenue 50. So that's my presentation for this evening. If you would like to ask me any questions or ask Tom O'Hara questions, we're ready to answer for you.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry, it's been a while. We're all a little out of commission on how to run these meetings. First of all, thank you for coming today. And I'm glad to hear that the crossings is hopefully going to get started here soon. I know that we could use more housing stock, so that's good to hear. My first question is, it looks like what you're asking for is more units per acre than the Beezer project, which is your nearest neighbor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe Beezer's right around 4, if I remember right. We're at 5.2. We are a little bit above that, but I think the product is in line with developments now today, and they seem to be desired. So, you know, it's not the typical lot product that Beezer has, but I think it's a little more innovation in this market right now. And I know from the crossings interest is working. So yes, we're just a little bit over, but not by much.
Okay, could you remind me what the unit per acre was for the crossings project, if you know that? Or staff knows that?
You know what? I do know that. Hold on. Let me, if I remember right, I think we were right at.
Well, it's 6, Keith.
Is it 6? I tell you what, I know we were 16 acres and we're 104. So I'm going to do.
We're 17 acres and we're 16.85. We're right around 6 acres, six
Okay.
per acre.
Yeah, 6.1.
Okay, so this would be kind of right between the two projects.
Correct.
Currently there. Okay. The area is, it's kind of been more rural, and we discussed the crossings because it was literally right up against the shopping center, if I remember correctly, on Ralph's. So this is definitely farther into the neighborhood in the areas. So one of my concerns would be to make sure that the development fits in nicely with the surrounding areas. So we would have, for me, I'd like to look closer what the Beezer's project actually looks like and what that crossings is going to look like and where it's going to land. I do understand that the area is changing and the demand for housing, is there, and for this kind of housing. For this neighborhood in this area, what kind of price point are we looking at? Because one of the things that area, is a certain type of housing. And the other part is that I know we need housing that is maybe a little entry level, which maybe this could be considered an entry level, possibly, home. So those are a couple of the questions that I'm interested in. The look is nice, and I definitely know that the developments are going toward these duplex styles. You can do more. Another big concern of mine is, where are you looking to place the 2-story units? Because, privacy and for the neighbors that are in the surrounding area, that's important. So if you could show me on that map where you're looking to put the 2 stories.
That's a great question. All the 2 stories are on the perimeter. All the 2 stories are on the interior. We have all the 1 stories on the perimeter of the whole project. And that was done on purpose just to make sure we were.
Okay, so the 2 stories are all in that center area, and none of the outer edges are 2 stories, correct?
Yep.
Except for 4 that are abutting onto Avenue 50.
Correct.
Okay, that has no neighbors basically, except for the road.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
In terms of price point, we're probably at about $650 for the 2 stories in today's market, and probably $750 for the 1 stories. And you're correct that this is where the market is trending right now. The duplexes are quite popular in in many of the developments that are being sold right now, and we feel that it's a winner.
So is the price point then comparable with like the Trilogy and their duplexes?
A little bit less than Trilogy.
A little bit less than Trilogy. Okay.
A little bit less than Trilogy. Over at PG West, these same product are going for 1.1 to 1.2. So that if we were 750 to 850, we'd definitely be in the market.
Okay. And then so the crossings, then you're kind of thinking these are going to be comparable.
Absolutely. I mean, we're probably similar prices to there. I mean, we probably won't get probably get a little bit more here than we will at the crossings, because being up against Ralph's, we will probably won't get as much. But at the same time, the walking distance to that market, the marketplace next door, is going to certainly assist us.
Okay. Okay. Those are my questions for now. I'd like to see what the commissioners have, or maybe if we have anyone, from the public, maybe. Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez or Vice Chair?
I just had some questions regarding the two-story. Again, I think the duplex is the colors. I don't know about the colors, but again, I think it's a great product, and again, for that area, it's needed. But pretty much, Commissioner Franz asked some of the questions I was curious about.
Vice Chair Ceja?
Yep, nothing additional for me.
Okay. Commissioner Franz did a great job kind of asking some of those questions. I know we'll see more as we go down the line. Do we have any public comments on this?
No, there are no comments.
Okay.
Chair, if I could I forgot one additional point I wanted to make for staff presentation. So as the commission is aware, the city recently adopted a housing element that this commission assisted on. And we have a total of 7,812 housing units that we had to plan for. The above moderate income portion of that 7,812 is 3,534. If this property was to develop at the Desert Estates neighborhood, it would probably be in the range of, say, 15 to 17 units after you take out some of the land for needed improvements. So at the 104 units, this site, if ultimately it was approved, both recommended for approval by the Planning Commission and ultimately approved by Council for the general plan amendment and zone change, would yield a greater number of units that would assist the city in its overall housing element numbers, which, as you may remember, but for the benefit of the public, the state allots certain numbers. The Southern California Association of Governments assigns those numbers to different jurisdictions in Riverside County and other counties. And in our case, that 7,812 housing units puts us in Coachella at the head of the class in the Coachella Valley for the number of units that we have to plan for in our communities, not necessarily build, but plan for. So certainly there would be a difference in the yield if this project was to ultimately go forward as proposed by the applicant.
Okay. Okay, please.
I know that based on the new zonings that we're looking at now, the discussion is for the suburban neighborhood 8. If they're going to ask for, their number, I'd like to see that be kept lower than 8. To me, I mean, I think they're asking for 5.2 in their, at least the information we have so far. I'd like to keep it, on that lower end, so that I'd hate to see it become even bigger and the property lines get smaller because you can go to 8, because I don't really want it to be so different from either Beezer or the crossings, which are all in that area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So the suburban neighborhood 8 is a range of 5 dwelling units to 8 dwelling units per acre, but in the tentative mapping process, right, the actual density will be assigned, and that will be the allowable density for the project. So if they wanted to seek a different density, they would either need to come in with that density at the time of the tentative map, or they would have to do a tentative map amendment that would ultimately come back to the commission.
Okay.
So the density will be assigned as part of that subdivision process.
Perfect. And I'd like to see that be on this smaller end versus the maximum.
Right. I think the applicant is proposing 5.2 dwelling units to the acre. I don't know that the land with needed improvements could yield much more out of that, but
Okay.
Certainly the applicant, I think, is hearing the concern from the commissioner, and they'll have to decide, ultimately that density. But they came in at 5.2, and I'm going to make an assumption that that's what they plan to go forward with.
That'd be great. And I do appreciate them coming before us and having this conversation and, following up and letting us know about the crossings and all the other things that are happening in that area. So, and the fact that you were very careful where you placed those 2-story units, that's very important to us. So thank you very much.
You're back.
I don't think we want to exceed the 5.1, 5.2 where we're at. I think that we're pretty happy with the 104 units.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gloria. Moving on to our public hearing items. Go ahead and open the public hearing for 6.1 tentative parcel map number 38411. It's a subdivision of a 4.71 acre parcel into 2 separate parcels.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. I'm representing Maribel Covarrubias, our assistant planner, who was the assigned planner on this. So this is a project that was intended to come to you as a tentative parcel map to create 2 lots of record. However, you may or may not be aware, but there was a Senate bill passed in 2021, SB 9, that authorizes what is called ministerial review or non-public hearing review of certain instances of lot creation. So if, for example, as proposed in this, one lot is going to be proposed to go from 1 lot to 2 lots, that project is eligible for SB 9 consideration. So in that regard, we were planning to bring this to the commission for public hearing review, but after consulting with the city attorney's office and talking to the applicant, it was deemed that this qualified and we have a legal obligation to process it as an SB 9 application. However, we had already publicly noticed the project. And so we wanted to bring it to the commission this evening so that the public had the opportunity to comment on it if they so desire. And we will, at staff level, we will take those comments into consideration as part of the consideration and review process. Ministerial basically means that it comes out under the signature of the community development director. This is actually would be our first SB 9 project. And we're actually working with the city attorney's office right now on developing some SB 9 regulations that we may do initially as an urgency ordinance, just so we have something on the books. But then as our practice is, we will come back through the planning commission for you to review those actual regulations to make recommendations to city council. So that urgency ordinance has a limited time period, and we would be back in front of you working to make those regulations permanent. But since we don't have them on the books, we have to default to the state rules.
Okay, then at this time, we'll see if we have any public comments online or if there were any public here that would like to speak on that since it was noticed.
There are no comments.
Okay, then are we able to move to 6.2?
Sure. Yep. You'd be able to close the hearing and move on to item.
Close the public hearing for 6.1 and move on to 6.2, resolution number 2026 upon this Rock Church conditional use permit.
As Manny walks up, Chair and members of the commission, this is Manuel's first presentation to you. He's excited, so give him lots of support and help show him that he's going to knock this out of the park.
Thank you, man.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening, commissioners. Manuel Rocha, assistant planner with the Community Development Department. Right. How do I get the PowerPoint up? Is there a way to get the PowerPoint up?
Okay.
Okay. So my apologies. That should actually be item 6.2, not 6.1. So item 6.2 is a conditional use permit request for Upon This Rock Church to allow a place of worship within the downtown area. The applicant is Upon This Rock Church, led by Pastor P. Anguillar. The church will contain approximately 25 to 50 congregants. Currently, the applicant hosts services at an industrial complex on Commerce Street in Indio. And approval of this application would represent a relocation to this site. So the anticipated hours of operation are from 5 to 6 p.m. for evening services, approximately 1 to 2 times a week, and in the evenings at the same time for Sunday services. The project is located at 82970 Requa Avenue, Suite 1, in an existing commercial building, host to the Southwest Church thrift store, which will remain. The parcel has a land use designation of downtown and is zoned downtown neighborhood under the downtown specific plan. Under the downtown specific plan, churches are authorized in the downtown neighborhood zone with a conditional use permit. So the figures before you represent the site plan in relation to the existing neighborhood and the floor plan, which shows the existing layout of the commercial building at this location. So the applicant is proposing to occupy Suite 1, which is just under 4,000 square feet in area. There are approximately 54 parking spaces dedicated for the commercial building and are utilized for tenants. The operation of the thrift store does not overlap with the proposed church hours. There are no exterior improvements proposed. The project is conditioned to obtain any appropriate building permits for tenant improvements and sign permits. In conclusion, staff recommends that PC adopt resolution number 2026 approving the Upon This Rock Church conditional use permit and determine that the project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15301 existing facilities of the CEQA guidelines. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Any questions for staff?
Just a couple. So the closest neighbor is the thrift, Southwest thrift shop that's there. Are there any other neighbors in that strip mall, or is that the only other
So in that business? So in that strip mall, it would just be Southwest Church and Upon This Rock Church. Sorry, Southwest Thrift Store and Upon This Rock Church. And then on the building next to it, it's Martha's Village, which I believe is also a thrift store.
Okay. And so that's all that strip mall can take is those two. There's not like another vacant space or anything, right?
Actually, I believe there is a vacant space.
So there is still room for more.
For one more.
For more businesses, for at least one more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any other places of worship?
So in this area, there is, what's it called? There is one located right here on Oasis and Bliss. I can't remember the name exactly.
But it's not like right next
Kevin,
door.
do you mind chiming in?
Yes,
Potter's,
it's
yes.
Potter's
It's just
house.
Potter's. Okay.
Yes. Okay. That is the only other one in there.
That's the only other one.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are my only two questions. Thank you.
And are the services only in the evenings on Sunday, you said as well, or?
Yeah. So it's going to be 2 times a week during the week from 5 to 6, and then also Sunday evenings.
No AM services on Sundays?
No, it just says in the evenings at the same time for Sunday services.
Okay.
5 to 6.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I
No.
thought there was more churches. Sorry. I thought there was some more churches. I need to probably spend more time in downtown Indio. But
Commissioner, you may be thinking of, we have several churches outside of the downtown to the west of downtown boundaries. So downtown boundaries end at King Street, and there are several churches to the west of that, but that's not considered downtown.
Well, behind the off of Miles and Oasis, there's a church. I don't know if it's still there. It's right across. So it's off of Miles. It's on the right-hand side. Right before you get to Oasis Street, when you're coming on Miles, when you.
I know what you're talking about. No,
the Abundance one.
It was previously occupied by, it's currently vacant.
Okay. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Okay. Then
Did we lose Christian?
No, Commissioner, he's not up there, but he's here. Commissioner Seha, do you have any questions for staff?
Yeah, I was just curious if we had looked into the capacity of the parking lot in that area, and if it's going to be adequate enough to withhold the attendance of the church participants.
Yeah, so there are 54 parking spots available. And the hours of the church will not overlap with the hours of operation of the thrift store.
And I believe you said the congregation was between 25 to 50 and there's 54 spots. So
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Should we hear from the applicant? Does the applicant here like to speak? Please.
Chair, I might suggest we open the hearing and invite the applicant.
Open the public hearing. You'll just state your name for the record.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Joseph Jonathan. I'm the applicant representing Upon This Rock Church. My address is 73301 Fred Warren Drive, Suite 200 in Palm Desert. Esteemed Chair and Commissioners, just want to thank you again this evening for hearing this application for Upon This Rock Church. Again, with staff support all throughout, Mr. Snyder, Mr. Rocha. I'd worked with 2 other staff members that have since left, so hopefully I'm not the common thread in that. But I do appreciate all of staff's time. So just to address some of the questions that came up previously, this is the only remaining vacancy in the building. So upon This Rock Church hopefully being approved for their CUP, that would represent 100% occupancy for the building. Additionally, the services are intended to be held on Sunday, perhaps at different times. There may be morning services, there may be evening services. However, Southwest Church, which operates their thrift store next door, is not open on Sundays. And truly this, in my mind, so I represent the property owner as well. In different ways, I manage the property on an ongoing basis. This represents a real off-hours use of the parking lot and of the property in general. If we look at the other tenants, as Mr. Rocha noted, the adjacent or across the street property my client also owns, that's a thrift store, and those are closed usually by 5 p.m. Having the church after hours is bringing in a lot of new congregants into the downtown neighborhood that won't be there already. We'll hopefully utilize the restaurants that are coming into the downtown area. We'll frequent the businesses on weekends that otherwise aren't being utilized right now by the existing tenants of the property. So a different demographic, different people coming into downtown, helping it thrive, and hopefully being a part of the community that grows and the fabric that grows. One of the things to keep in mind, I know we talk about vacancies in downtown, and this will fill a vacancy in downtown. The previous owner to this property had this space vacant for years and years and years. So having vacant storefronts is not what we want to see in downtown. As a property manager, and I'm sure as other members of the community, having a more vibrant, active evening community and daytime community is incredibly important. And I think this will add a lot of character to the neighborhood that's muchly needed as well. So again, very appreciative of all of staff's time and input, and all of the chair and commissioners of yours as well, and available for any questions that you might have.
I don't have any questions for applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I'm also still on the record, which I don't know if I am, but
yes,
Pastor Pete Aguiar and his wife Rachel are here as well. If you'd like to ask any questions of them to represent
no questions,
church.
Unless there's something you'd like to state on the record, we'd be glad to hear from you.
I just also am very appreciative, and I just want to thank you all for your time and consideration. And as Joseph was speaking, this will be something that would be good for the community, would be good for downtown Indio. I was born and raised here, and I really love the Coachella Valley. So we're ready to work for the kingdom of God and help people around the neighborhood better themselves. And if they better themselves, the city will get better. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on this item?
There are none.
Okay. Being that there are no public comments, do we have any?
Chair, just as a reminder, you would need to close the public hearing before any action.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any deliberation or any motions?
I can make a motion if no one has any comments. I think this will be a good addition to downtown. We need activity and people, and this will bring that. So I think it's great. So I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2026 upon this Rock Church conditional use permit request to allow a place of worship located at 82970 Requa Avenue, Suite 1.
I will second.
Okay, was that a second, Commissioner Ceja?
That's correct.
Okay. Can we turn up his volume? We can barely hear him.
Mhm.
And then if we can take a roll call vote, please.
Chairperson Nico Isiano,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Christian Rodriguez Ceja,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Franz,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackie Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Vice Chairperson, can you check the volume on your end? I wonder if your volume's turned down because we're barely hearing you.
Yeah, I've been having connectivity issues. Is this any better?
Getting better, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I have my headphones on. I don't know. Volume's all the way up. I had to log in on my phone for some reason. My laptop was acting up, so I apologize.
Okay, and then next public hearing item is 6.3, resolution number 2028. To recommend the City Council approval of general plan amendment, amending Chapter 3 of General Plan 2040 and amending the general plan land use designation map. And also resolution 2029, recommending to City Council to approve zoning text amendment to repeal Chapter 150 and 159. And also resolution number 2030, recommending to City Council the making of a finding of consistency with the final environmental impact report for General Plan 2040.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. I'm going to say some comments and then I'm going to turn it over to our consultant team. First of all, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission. This has been an over 2-year journey with the Planning Commission and members of the community. And we're very proud to bring this to you this evening. Represents a lot of work, a lot of effort to bring the vision of the general plan into fruition through the zoning regulations. As a primer, general plans don't necessarily regulate development and growth of the city. They set the vision, and it's the zoning regulations and the development standards that do that. So for the last approximately 2 years, we have been working together to develop these regulations. A couple of points. One, I'm going to guarantee you that we probably missed something because we did a wholesale rewrite of the zoning regulations and we created something entirely different for the city, which does not exist today. Today, we have a very traditional looking set of zoning regulations and honestly, very sometimes difficult to follow, sometimes difficult to implement. We have gone down the path of a unified development code, which is intended to be more clear, more objective, more visual, and hopefully provide both the commission, the community, applicants, and staff with a better roadmap and a clearer roadmap of how to regulate growth and development in the city. But no zoning regulations are perfect. So it is the great thing about the zoning regulations or a unified development code, as we'll start referring it to, is it's a living document, which means that we will likely be back before you making amendments to it, probably for several years afterwards, as we learn and grow with the document, as you learn and grow with the document, and we recognize things that we need to fix or we need to amend. But nevertheless, it's a substantial achievement and it represents, I think, a tremendous effort by yourselves as commissioners. I want to thank you, the Planning Commission, for your dedication and your involvement in the study sessions. That was an incredible opportunity to learn and take direction from you as to the things that were important to you and that you felt you needed to see in the zoning regulations. Now, as the chair pointed out, we have 3 resolutions before you because as we went through the zoning code update, we recognized that we needed to make some modifications to the general plan, both in the text and in the land use map. So we have a companion action with this evening. In addition to the zoning regulations amendment, we're also looking to amend the general plan. And then the third action is to address the consistency to the final environmental impact report that was prepared for the general plan. Before I turn it over to our team, I do want to thank the team. Alessandra and Simran and Roger have been pretty much with us throughout all of this. They worked with us through a pandemic, which posed interesting challenges. They worked with us through a lot of staff changes. And they worked with my sometimes crazy schedule and availability, and they kept their sense of humor, their focus, their professionalism, and their dedication throughout it. So I want to say a heartfelt thank you to both of them, along with Roger. Roger was the primary author of our sign code regulations and our special uses. And if you've ever had the joy of doing sign code, you sometimes wonder why I have no hair left. That'll answer the question because I lost it during sign code. In any regard, I want to thank them again. I want to thank the commission, the city council for their support, and obviously the community, because oftentimes we've had to, over the last several years, explain to the community how we had this disconnect between our general plan and our zoning regulations, and ask for their patience and understanding where we got to this point. I am hopeful that this evening that you will find that we have achieved the majority, if not all, of your goals for the zoning code update. And at this time, unless there are any questions of me, I would like to turn it over to the consultant team so that they can walk you through a presentation. And following that, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Love to hear from them. Hello.
Thank you, Kevin. And good evening, Chair Istiano and members of the Planning Commission. It's good to see you all again today. I'm Simran Malhotra, principal at Ramey and Associates. And with me today, I have Alessandra Lundin and Roger Eastman, who's with Lisa Vice Consulting. As Kevin mentioned, Roger was responsible for the sign code as well as the special uses section of the Unified Development Code. And again, thank you for all your helpful comments and feedback during the 6 workshops we had in the past several months. Those have helped inform the code and made it better. So what we have for you today is an overview presentation. Some of this is information you've already seen, but we wanted to provide an overall presentation for those who are seeing this for the first time. Spend a little bit of time focusing on the revisions that have been made since the last draft, and then talk about the general plan amendment, both in terms of the land use chapter as well as the map changes that have been made in order to maintain consistency between the zoning code and the general plan. So this project, which started about a little over 2 years ago, is a comprehensive update of chapters 150 and 159 of the Indio Municipal Code. Chapter 159 contains the zoning regulations and 150 contain the sign code. These 2 chapters are being combined into a unified development code, which will be a standalone document. The primary goal of this update was to create a consistent, well-organized, highly illustrated document, which I hope you think has been achieved. And it's also intended to ensure consistency with the general plan and address recent changes in state law. The Unified Development Code is going to be a single standalone regulatory document that will guide all development within the city of Indio. It has zoning regulations, development standards, design standards, as well as sign regulations. In terms of notification about the project, The city has a project website as a part of the city's website. It's listed here. A project mailer was sent out earlier this year, informing all residents about the project and inviting them to attend the workshops we had with you. We also set up an online interactive parcel-based map where someone could look at their current zoning, the proposed zoning, as well as if the general plan designation on their property was being modified. As you well know, the public had an opportunity to learn about the code at the 6 workshops we had with you over the last few months. The code and the zoning map and the general plan map was also reviewed by the Riverside County Airport Land Use Commission earlier in June. The city also sent another mailer to every property owner in the city about these adoption hearings, and that mailer invited them to come to this hearing, as well as listed the dates for the hearings with the city council in the next couple of months. And with that, I will ask Alessandra to walk us through the overview of the code and the zoning map and the rest of the presentation. Alessandra, go ahead.
Thank you, Simran. Good evening, commissioners. As Simran mentioned, I'm going to walk through kind of some of the more a high-level overview of the different sections of the code, as well as the zoning map and the general plan amendments. Next slide. So this slide provides the high-level table of contents for the Unified Development Code. And I'm going to walk through each of these in more detail on the coming slides. The sign code is included in Article 3, the citywide standards. And then Article 5 will include subdivision regulations, which will be updated at a later time. Next slide. So Article 1 provides the introductory provisions for the code, and this includes the purpose and authority. It establishes the zones and the official zoning map, and then it provides a chapter on how to use the code, since this is kind of a new format for the city. Next slide. Article 2 includes all the zone-specific regulations, and it's broken up into chapters by broad land use category. So the residential zones, the mixed use zones, non-residential zones, public and institutional zones, specific plan and project master plan zones, and then the overlay zones. And each of these chapters includes a table of the permitted, conditionally permitted, and prohibited uses by zone, as well as the detailed development standards for each zone. The mixed use zone chapter also provides detailed objective design standards for detached single-family residential developments, mixed-use developments, and multifamily residential developments. Next slide. Article 3 provides all the regulations that apply citywide or to multiple zones in the city, and these include general site development standards for site design, setbacks and encroachments, services, utilities, and refuse and recycling, landscaping standards, fences, walls, and screening, and outdoor lighting, among others. Article 3 also provides the parking and loading requirements for various land uses, performance standards, such as noise, hazards, and the like. And then, as we mentioned before, chapter 3.05, that contains all of the sign regulations, and I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail on the next slide. And then lastly, there's the art in public places ordinance, which was adopted into chapter 3.06. Next slide. So again, Article 3 contains the sign regulations. So the existing Chapter 150, Billboards and Signs of the Municipal Code, has been comprehensively revised and included here. It includes general provisions for signs, administration and procedures, sign standards by zone, general sign requirements, and permanent sign standards. Additionally, the revised sign regulations have added some sign design and performance standards to encourage permanent signs with design features that are preferred by the city and the community at large. And lastly, this chapter provides a more comprehensive set of regulations for various temporary sign types. Next slide. So Article 4 provides site planning, development, and operating standards for specific uses or activities in the city that require special standards to ensure compatibility with neighboring uses and or for health and safety. So some examples of the chapters and the uses included here are for adult-oriented businesses, animal keeping, which talks about kind of the number of animals that you can have on your property depending on the zone and the kind of the size of your property and the like. There's standards for automotive services and fueling stations. Again, the cannabis ordinance that was just passed was incorporated here. There's standards for drive-through uses, mini storage warehousing facilities, outdoor storage, making sure that outdoor storage is screened properly, pawn shops, RV parks, thrift shops, smoke shops, and temporary uses. Again, this is not a comprehensive list, but this is just an example. And next slide. And then Article 6 of the code covers all the administration and procedures related to land use and development. At the beginning of the article is a table summarizing all of the review authorities for various types of decisions and appeals. Chapter 6.03 covers the common procedures such as application forms and fees, pre-application review by the city, public noticing, appeals, and the like. Chapter 6.04 includes all of the permits and approvals, such as planning review, use permits, such as administrative use permits and conditional use permits, temporary use permits, and variances, just to name a few. The article also includes procedures for general plan and zoning amendments, and other types of plans, such as specific plans and development agreements in the city. And then lastly, this article provides all of the non-conforming provisions and enforcement and abatement procedures. And I guess next slide, Simran. And then I'll just say briefly, Article 7, I don't have a slide for it, but that includes all of the definitions in the code. So all of the terms are kind of fully defined in that article. As Simran mentioned, we held a series of 6 Planning Commission study sessions to walk through the public draft code over the last couple of months. And based on staff and Planning Commission recommendations, I just wanted to highlight a few of the minor revisions that have been made since the public draft. So there were a few additions and revisions made to the refuse and recycling section in Article 3, just to add a couple of more details and specifications on trash enclosures. In Article 4, special uses or specific uses, we added the commercial cannabis regulations per the recently adopted cannabis ordinance number 1779. We also added a requirement for ground floor retail or office uses for mini storage or warehousing facilities to encourage more active frontages for those uses. And then lastly, we made a few minor updates to Article 6, Administration and Procedures. The key change being edits to the calls for review section per recommendations and comments we received from the Planning Commission. Next slide. So here you can see the new zoning map for the city, and I'll walk through some of the new zones on the coming slides. Next slide. So this table provides a list of all of the new zones in the city, as well as their density or intensity, and the existing or old zoning districts that correspond to the new zones. There are 4 residential zones and 6 mixed-use zones in the city. The 2040 general plan that was adopted in 2019 included a suburban neighborhoods and a connected neighborhoods designation. And we ended up splitting these designations into 2 zones each. And that enabled us to provide kind of a more nuanced or smaller density range for each. And this was also required to conform to new state laws that have come out since the general plan was adopted. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I go through the proposed general plan amendments. Next slide. And then this is a continuation of that table. So you can see we have 4 new non-residential zones in the city: light industrial, heavy industrial, regional commercial, and resource recovery. There are 2 public and institutional zones. And then there are 4 overlay zones. Next slide. And now I'm going to walk through some of the general plan amendments. So we are proposing several amendments to the adopted Indio General Plan 2040 text and land use map to address required consistency with the zoning code or the new Unified Development Code, and to address recent changes in state housing law. So these include, as I kind of mentioned before, splitting the suburban neighborhoods land use designation into 2. So it will now have a suburban neighborhood low and a suburban neighborhood high designation. We're also splitting the connected neighborhoods land use designation into 2 designations: connected neighborhoods low and high. We have incorporated the desert estates transition land use designation that was previously established by the city council. So we're making sure this is fully incorporated into the general plan now. And then we had to redesignate parcels on the general plan land use per those new designations. As well as we made a few minor fixes to the map to address some zoning consistency errors or property ownership or existing land uses on the ground. So there was some cleanup as well. And then on the next slide, you will see the revised general plan map. With these changes, you might notice that the general plan land use map and the zoning map are almost identical in that they have an almost 1-to-1 correlation between the general plan land use designations and the implementing zoning districts. And that concludes our presentation for this evening. So I'm going to open it up for discussion and questions.
Commissioner?
Sure, I'll start. First of all, I do want to say thank you to staff and to our consultants. This has been a very interesting process. It's taken a very long time, and I know that a lot of this stuff has really been looked at in great detail. And I'm glad to hear that it is not perfect and that it will possibly be amended, several times over the next few years. So that's good to know. It doesn't need to be perfect today. For the public and for my fellow commissioners, I'd like to go over the 6.03.12 calls for review section and the language that is here, just to make sure that that we're in agreement that what we had asked for is what is in here. I actually think it's good, but I think it's important that we kind of go through it a little bit before we move forward on it. And I want to make sure that no one is seeing something that I'm not seeing.
Commissioner and rest of the commission, would you like the consultant team and myself to walk you through it, or would you like to read it and then ask questions just so we understand what your preference is?
Not really long, so whatever.
If you want to go ahead and ask the questions that you had, or
I didn't have very specific ones. It is page 291 if anyone is trying to find it in the ginormous book that we were provided with. Thank you. Article 6. I think it's very, very well done. And just to confirm, it looks like almost, it doesn't seem to limit it to any administrative actions taken by the director will be shared with us at the next scheduled meeting. And at which point we will have the opportunity to say, we'd like to review that before it is either approved or denied based on what your administrative decision is looking like at the time. And it looks like that if the Planning Commission and the City Council both either can call up an item, but if we both call it up, that it skips the Planning Commission and goes directly to City Council. Did I read that right, or did I read that incorrectly?
No, you read that correctly, but that's in an instance where we're because of procedurally we have to streamline our review and consideration process. It goes directly to council in that regard to maintain consistency with state law.
Okay, so does that make sense to everybody that if the city council decides to question the same item, which they can, then it would automatically skip us. And it sounds like it's a state law thing and there's probably not a whole lot we can do, but I wanted to make sure we were all aware that that was the language that was in here. And it looks like decisions within 15 days after a decision is done, an applicant has to file an appeal. Is that what I'm reading correctly?
That is correct.
Okay.
And one thing I might know is that the city council can call up the decision of the community development director or the planning commission. So just want to note that for the record. So if the planning commission makes a decision, the city council believes needs its review, it has the authority under these regulations to call that up.
Okay. Now, can city council also call it up? Let's say we decide to call it up and review it and we have an action. Of course, some things will still go to city council and some things don't, correct?
Correct.
So that will continue the same.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions on that section?
I do not.
Okay.
If I could add just the only point following, assuming that this ultimately gets adopted, then I would just want to work out the how you would like the reporting to be done in a way that is efficient but informative. So that is to be determined, but that reporting would occur as the commissioner pointed out. We would just need to agree upon the format for that.
I think we discussed it because there's some times where we don't have a meeting, in the immediate time after.
Right. There is that instance, so that we hope that with the addition of a fifth planning commission member, we'll be able to limit those. But I also want to make sure that I'm reporting in a way that meets the expectations of the commission, but is also efficient such that it's not more of a drain on staff resources than necessary.
And I think it says in here that it shall be placed on the agenda for the next meeting. So if we don't have a meeting, it would get bumped.
That is correct.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So the 15 days doesn't start until we get a opportunity.
Okay.
Is what I'm reading. Okay.
All right. Thank you for the questions and thank you, Kevin, for clarifying. Any other?
I think we've seen this so much that I think we're all pretty comfortable with how it's done. I do want to commend, there's a lot of detail in here, and I think that will be helpful when a developer or a community member is coming before us and asking for a conditional use permit or an administrative use permit. I think what we have been working for, which again is streamlining and moving things through quickly and efficiently, is good. The only thing I wanted to and this thing is huge, so I might have just missed it in here. We had talked about architectural review, and that at certain sizes, right, of projects would be the only ones that would come before us. Can somebody please remind me where in this document and which page is that outlined?
I think you're speaking specifically to the objective design standards requirements for certain types of housing. So perhaps Simran or Alessandra could speak to that.
Actually, Kevin, Commissioner Franz, are you referring to the industrial uses? I think we have a threshold of.
When we discussed it, it was, I think, commercial and industrial, and under a certain size that they would just not come before us at all. I think residential comes before us pretty much any kind of big development, right?
We had talked about certain limited projects that would be done at the administrative or staff level. Those thresholds were fairly limited. I'm looking through the document myself right now, but I believe we were in the range of 5,000 square feet for certain types, no more than a maximum of 10,000, if memory serves me correctly. But if you can take a minute to find that in the document, we can speak to it more.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of know what page it's on. Okay. I think I was too tired by the time I got there. I couldn't find it.
For a reference, the item for the conditional use permit for the church that came up earlier was 4,000 square feet. If it was under 5,000, that would have not come.
Conditional use permits we have two types of conditional use permits: administrative conditional use permits, what we've already had, and conditional use permits. But I'm going to have to double check the regulations to answer your question more fully, Chair. So give me an additional moment on that.
Yeah.
Yes, the page that it's on is 298 in Article 6. So it talks about planning review, administrative planning review projects, and the threshold of 5,000 square feet for commercial developments and 10,000 square feet for industrial.
298.
Yes, so that's for projects that are allowed by right, or where in the land use tables, it's an administrative use permit, not conditional use permit.
Alessandra, can you speak to the distinction between administrative use permit and conditional use permit? I'm looking for that right now, but you may have it more handy.
Where is that section referenced?
Correct.
I can bring that up as well. That is under 6.04.04 use permits, so which starts on page 302. And that talks about administrative use permits versus conditional use permits.
So the correlation is if you go back to Article 2, where we talk about different types of land uses, we have different designations where they are permitted outright, which is typically shown by a P. There is administrative use permit, which is at the staff level, which is designated by AUP. And then there's conditional use permits. So it's not necessarily a square footage based decision. That was more oriented towards the administrative variance discussion we had the last time we met with you. But that's more directed or considered based on that matrix table of different land uses and their permitted administrative use or conditional use or prohibited status. And if either Simran or Alessandra want to expand on that or correct me, please do.
And Kevin, you summarized it correctly. We can get into more detail if the commission desires.
Right. And then, and again, a reminder, the reason why we use square footage as the basis for the administrative variance versus a regular variance was to recognize that there may be a square footage threshold at which a public hearing process is necessary and needed to provide the fullest opportunity for the public to participate and give comment. But there may be variations sought that are I don't want to say de minimis. I'm sorry. I'm struggling for a word, but are smaller in nature. Minor. Thank you. And may not warrant as substantial process as others. Again, that's in the interest of streamlining, time efficiency, cost efficiency for for interested applicants, and the time efficiency for staff resources as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just couldn't find where that square footage was, and I was really interested to make sure it's what we had discussed and it hadn't gotten any bigger or something, or something had happened to it. So thank you.
Hold us accountable, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions, comments? Commissioner Lopez?
I just have a question to Director Snyder in regards to some of the public comments we received. And I was trying to find where the language is in regards to permitting with warehouses.
So the public comment we received was pertaining to the individual's concern with the environmental impacts of allowing warehouses in the city. And that was submitted earlier today. That would be under the industrial portion of our zoning. So if you go back to Article 2 and you go to 2.04.03 and 2.403 and 2.402. So land use regulations.
Hold on, time out, sir.
Wait, let's find it.
I'm sorry, my apologies. Those would be pages 72 of the document
Okay.
through
I'm like, which?
If you look at the document itself, it's page 72. If you're looking at the top, where if you've got a PDF version, it's page 175.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm like, I have 2 pages here and I'm trying to figure out which one it is. So, okay.
So this is the land use regulations, and these regulations are broken down by the proposed zoning designations. So for example, IL means light industrial. IH means heavy industrial. And so as you, on the left-hand side is the use, and then to the right of that are the various zone descriptions. And for each of those zones, again, using those denominators of P for permitted, A for administrative use permit, CUP, conditional use permit, and X meaning prohibited, that is the list. So warehouses are a certain type of land use that would be allowed in certain areas. And I
believe it's just the light industrial and heavy industrial zones.
So Alessandra has lived with this, so she literally knows where everything is. I'm still trying to figure out which page stuff are on.
I try, but
I got. So the point
Page 76 of the PDF.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Or
So
73. I think it's
23 and
or no.
Indoor warehousing, storage, wholesaling and distribution, which is the third row from the bottom of the page. So that would be permitted in the light industrial and in the heavy industrial. And so, but that doesn't mean that it's not subject to review by the Planning Commission.
Do we, okay, I guess my question, and I need to go back and reading, I had to read this several times over and over again. I guess my question is regarding our zoning, once, like where, I guess I'm trying to look at the map, we had the different zones. What's the proximity from, do we have anything in our ordinances that, I'm thinking too, because of a state assembly bill that has gone through and it's in the Senate in regards to warehouses near schools, homes. It's a Senate bill by, Assembly bill by Luis Reyes and Robert Rivas, Assembly member Robert Rivas. So I've been following that. So based on that, what, kind of looking at that, like where is the proximity to home, schools, to industrial warehouses?
So
or light industrial, anything that would come in. I guess I'm maybe with that, it's like anything over 100,000, I think, square footage, maybe perhaps. I'm trying to read a little bit more. Language has changed since the last time I read it, but I'm trying to understand some of the complaints that we, well, not complaints, some of the public comments we received, what we currently have now, and where this is going to be placed. Because I want to just see where the residential and the proposed.
So the zoning, the implementation of zoning is consistent with the general plan land use designation map.
Okay.
So we only can put those light industrial and heavy industrial in areas that have the workforce employment district designation.
Okay.
The Senate, the legislative bill that you're referring to, Commissioner, is a bill that started out as a statewide bill that has been proposed to be specific to Imperial and Riverside counties, and it would create separation distances from certain types of uses, as you indicated. That bill, at my understanding, has stalled or is not progressing at the moment.
It's gone through it's in the Senate now, and it's just been updated, and I'm going through it right now. But it's San Bernardino County and Riverside County.
Oh, okay.
Imperial County is not included.
I got my counties wrong. Sorry. Thank you. But at the moment, we do not have those separation standards. If that ultimately became law, we would obviously have to take that into effect and make necessary modifications to our zoning regulations and any other regulations. But a project would still have to go through review efforts. That would include design review before the Planning Commission. And as you remember, you've been given or designated authority by the City Council to be the decision maker for conditional use permits and design review applications. It would also be subject more than likely to environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act. And that is a significant review looking at things such as traffic, air quality, cultural resources, biology. And typically how that is done is that there is significant studies done in each of those areas that are presented to the city and are considered as part of the review of a project, and appropriate mitigation measures, whatever those might be, are then incorporated into conditions of approval for the commission's consideration for potential adoption. If those conditions of approval are adopted, then they become the governance, if you will, of how that property is developed. So there's significant review that is done. This bill that we are referring to would be more focused on physical separation, but we would still do those environmental reviews. That would not change. It would just be a physical separation from certain types of land uses if it ultimately becomes a state law.
Okay, but current zoning now, if what we currently have on inventory, do we have it where it's just?
We do not have separation requirements today in our current zoning regulations, nor in the proposed regulations.
Okay.
But again, if that bill does ultimately become state law, we would have to address it and put in appropriate zoning controls to affect that law. But no matter what happens with that particular law, we will be doing appropriate level of local review in terms of design review at the commission's level and environmental review under the procedures and guidelines of the California Environmental Quality Act.
Okay.
If I could just add something here, what we do have in the Unified Development Code is increased setbacks if there are industrial uses adjacent to a residential zone. So the setbacks are much larger. There are also height step downs in certain areas when there's industrial buildings adjacent to residential buildings, and these are in the table on page 2-78 or 81 of the PDF.
Thank you, Simran. That is something that we did take into account, and what Simran described is intended to mitigate, if you will, some of the impacts of industrial uses that are potentially located to more sensitive uses. So thank you, Simran. That was a good reminder of what we have tried to address, at least some of the concerns.
And also I noticed that a lot of that area is literally along I-10, right? It's that light blue color, if I'm getting the color correctly off the map. So
a significant portion on I-10, and then we do have areas along Indio Boulevard that are also designated with that as well.
Yeah,
so that's a good point. But how many along I-10 has been proposed for affordable housing and housing itself? It's zoned or?
The workplace employment designation is primarily along Interstate 10. And then as you go further north of that, properties north of that. So kind of that band area between I-10 and Avenue 40, there's been a band of properties that have been designated. And then if you go further down, there's some properties along Indio Boulevard. As you get closer to the eastern part of the city, closer to Coachella, these are already existing industrial areas that have been not fully developed with industrial uses. We do have a lot of self-storage facilities there, but they are available for allowable industrial uses. We actually have, and for those of you that were around when we did the general plan, we actually have a relatively small inventory of industrial zone land, about 520 acres. So we are a city that has a limited supply, if you will, of lands for industrial use. And because of the changes in state housing law, it would be very difficult for us to increase that inventory substantially. So we do have as Simran pointed out, we do have these setbacks and height standards that are intended to help mitigate some of the impacts. And then again, if that bill becomes a law, we will address that at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Commissioner Vice Chair Rodriguez-Ceja, any comments before we move on to public comment?
Yeah, no questions for me. Just want to commend staff and say how appreciative I am of keeping us very well informed throughout the entire process. Kevin, we really appreciated that workbook that you all put together for us, and then I just want to say that this has been a huge learning opportunity for me. So I want to thank the staff, and I also want to thank the consultant for keeping us well informed and being patient with us every step of the way. So Simran, Alessandra, thank you very much for all of your wonderful work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Thank you, Alessandra and Simran and Kevin and all of our staff. It's been a long, I don't know how far we can go back with this, but it's definitely been a learning experience for everyone, I'm sure. Appreciate you.
And Chair, before you open for the public hearing, I just had one additional comment I wanted to make.
Please.
We have received inquiries during this process about changes to individual properties, either general plan and or zoning, but for properties that in this process, we've identified properties that we need to adjust the general plan for the reasons earlier stated by Alessandra to address consistency and other factors, but we have not received or processed individual applications where there was an interest in changing something that we didn't need to change. And we did that purposely because from a resource perspective, we could not accomplish these individual reviews. So we have been advising individuals who made those inquiries that those type of actions would have to be considered at a later time. And we would do that through the process of a general plan amendment and likely a zoning map amendment that would be reviewed by this commission in the future with a recommendation to city council. So we have kept it primarily focused on a citywide application, no individual requests where persons were interested in something, but it wasn't necessarily something we needed to do to address the consistency or other issue. And I say that because you may get some comments this evening from individuals who have that interest. I've shared what I shared with the commission with them, and I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you. Okay, I know we will have some requests to speak. I have one in front of me. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. And I have a request to speak for Daniel Sanchez. Is he present? And after this, do we have any other additional requests to speak, either in person or online?
Yes, online.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you for your time. You answered most of my questions in the presentation you made, but my concern, I'm a homeowner, and my concern was the flyer that was sent over through the mail says that it could affect any future development. So that is my question. How is that going to affect me, or is it going to affect me as a homeowner?
Yeah, please, if you'll take that, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. It probably won't affect you if you have an existing residence and you built on your property. If, for example, you had a vacant piece of property and you desired to build something on it, whether it was residential or commercial, then these new zoning regulations would apply to you. If you wanted to add a casita to your property,
yes,
the setback requirements, when this would be adopted, would apply to you. But if you're already in a built condition, I think it's going to be little to no impact on you. And we would, not necessarily probably see any real change and for you if you have a house and you want to do certain things with it.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question and my concern. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Jessica, we have someone via Zoom that would like to make a comment.
Yes, Michelle Diaz.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, a couple questions that I have. If we wanted, first I want to say that was a great presentation, by the way. It answered a lot of my questions. As a resident of Indio, how would we be able to obtain the report? That's one question. If we're not allowed to have that report, how do we determine if our properties are going to be, and surrounding undeveloped areas, how are they going to be affected by the possible rezoning? Will we get a flyer in the mail? Will we get notification? Do we have a say-so? All of those types of things. Also, if we have existing buildings on properties and if our properties are rezoned, will we be grandfathered in to the new rezone if we're going to be rezoned? I know that's a couple of loaded questions, but those are concerns. I've been in the desert for a very long time, and just want to make sure that if there's existing buildings on properties and we're rezoned, will we be grandfathered in? And how can we obtain the report and determine whether or not our properties are rezoned? And I'm speaking for all residents, not just myself.
Kevin, please.
Thank you, Michelle. Those are actually really great questions. So regarding how to obtain information that was presented this evening, there are several avenues. And before we I'll make sure to get your contact information before the end of the evening so that I can send you the connections to those. But we do have a dedicated webpage for this project. All of this information that we discussed this evening is available on that page. We also have an interactive map that you can go on and you can type in the address of your property and see what the current zoning and the proposed zoning is. And then you can also see that for the properties surrounding you. So our team, our consultant team created that to help individuals such as yourself be able to be aware of that. So that's all available on the city website. The packet that is being looked at tonight by the Planning Commission is available on our what we call our meeting agenda portal, and I can also send you a link to that too. And all the information is there. It's publicly accessible. 99% of the information that we have is what's called public record. There's very few instances, unless there's a confidential legal matter involved, where we're not able to give information. That is not this case. Actually, Simran is, I think, putting down some information in the chat for you so you can connect to that. So the majority of our information is public record. We're happy to share that with you. Your question about if you have an existing building on property. So there's a couple of ways to answer that. And Simran or Alessandra certainly jump in if I miss something or if I need to be corrected. So first, if you have an existing building on your property, you're likely not to be affected. I met the gentleman that I spoke earlier. If you want to add to your property, such as a casita or a shed, then we do look at things called setbacks. Then that's basically, you have to put the building or structure a certain number of feet away from the property lines. On the side and the rear are typically when we look at that. Mm-hmm. And we have those setback standards in our current code, and we have setback standards in the new code. And it's really to make sure that when the structures are built on the property, that you're not reasonably causing negative impact to your surrounding neighbors. So those are things that we look at for residentials. Those are pretty straightforward numbers. Typically, you're looking at, for example, maybe 5 feet off of the side or rear property line in some instances, depending on your zone. And again, that's intended to make sure that your neighbors aren't unnecessarily impacted, or you are not necessarily impacted if your neighbor is doing a similar thing and putting up a structure. If your building, and this is a hypothetical, but if your building was what we call a non-conforming legal use, and there are certain buildings in our city that were built at a time when it was allowed, but at present they're not allowed, they are legally allowed to stay there, except for in a certain number of instances. If there is a man-made occurrence, such as a fire or something that can be attributed to a man-made action, and it damages the building more than 50% of the value of that building, then our current code and our new code would say that you can't rebuild it as it was. You'd have to rebuild it as the code requires. And that's both the zoning code, the building codes. So there are instances where buildings and properties have to be brought up to current regulations. Again, very limited situations, but there are those instances. And I don't know if Simran or Alessandra want to weigh in with any additional thoughts.
Sure. I was just going to say, so you can find that section of the code in Article 6. It's Chapter 6.07 on non-conforming provisions. And it talks about how, existing non-conforming uses and structures can stay as they are. And the only minor thing I have to say for Kevin is it actually does include, you're right. So basically, if a structure is damaged beyond 50% of the value by anything, fire, earthquake, etc., then you have to rebuild it to code.
But not fully man-made.
Yeah. But we also do allow, like one-time expansions of non-conforming structures if they meet certain requirements or renovation. So.
And really where you see this non-conforming mostly happen is in commercial or industrial properties. It's very rare that you see this apply in residential properties. But but there are those limited instances. Simran, did you have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just add, Kevin, you're right. For the most part, this is for non-residential properties, but often what we run into is that the setbacks have changed for residential zones. So sometimes there are issues with non-conforming setbacks in residential areas, and those are also addressed in the chapter Alessandra mentioned 6.07, and it allows for the non-conforming conditions to continue as long as they're not made worse by any additions or changes to the building.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We have two homes that are pretty close to a street that were built probably 70 years ago. So I'm sure they're not compliant with city code. So it was just a question about that and if they would be grandfathered in. And it sounds like yes, unless there's some major catastrophe. And 50% of it is non-repairable. That makes sense.
And Michelle, I was just going to offer that myself and my team members are happy to talk with you or meet with you anytime if you wanted to sit down and go over in detail those two properties, and we can talk to you about the questions you posed tonight in more detail. We're happy to meet with you anytime. My contact information is available under the community development portion of the city's website, and be happy to meet with you or talk over the phone, whatever is best for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin and consultants, for answering their questions, and appreciate you being available for any of our local community to go over things on an individual basis. Do we have any other comments online or any other requests to speak?
Written comments were received and distributed to the commissioners and posted on the City of Indio's website and meeting agenda portal.
Thank you.
But there are no other comments.
Okay, thank you. Being that there are no other comments, we'll close the public hearing. And do we have any further commissioner deliberation, or how are we going to tackle these three?
Well, unless there's any comments, I mean, I'm more than ready to make a motion. We've been at this for, what did you say, Kevin? 2 years?
2 years, 2 months, 3 days, 23 hours, and 16 minutes,
Not that
but
you
not
were
counting.
So, I mean, does anybody?
Are we taking care of these resolutions on a?
Yes, if you could take it individually up on the screen for you, the team has put the resolutions in descending order, and we would ask that you take individual action on each one for the record.
Okay, please.
Okay, ready? All right. Definitely looking forward to this one. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2028, recommending to the City Council of the City of Indio, California, the approval of a general plan amendment, amending Chapter 3, Land Use and Urban Design of the General Plan 2040, and amending the General Plan Use Designation Map.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chairperson Nico Isiano,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Christian Rodriguez Ceja,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Franz,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackie Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Now we can move on to resolution number 2029, recommended to the City Council of the City of Indio, California, the approval of a zoning text amendment to repeal Chapter 150 Billboards and Signage and Chapter 159 Zoning Regulations of Title 15 of the Indio Municipal Code, and adoption of the Indio Unified Development Code as the signage and zoning regulations for the city, and repeal of the current citywide zoning map and adoption of the new citywide zoning map.
I'll second.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Chairperson Nico Isiano,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Christian Rodriguez Ceja,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Franz,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackie Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
One more.
One more. Resolution, make a motion to approve resolution number 2030, recommending to the City Council of the City of Indio, California, the making of a finding of consistency with the program final environmental impact report for the General Plan 2040, certified by the City Council on September 18th, 2019, for the amendments of Chapter 3, Land Use and Urban Design of the general plan 2040 for the amendments to the general plan land use designation map for the repeals of chapters 150 and 159 of the Title 15 of the Indio Municipal Code and adoption of the Indio Unified Development Code and the repeal of the current citywide zoning map and adoption of the new citywide zoning map.
Can you say that again?
I'll second.
No.
Roll call vote, please.
Chairperson Isiano,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Rodriguez Saha,
Yes.
Commissioner Franz,
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
motion carries.
Chair, can I have one more comment to make? I failed to acknowledge an individual that helped us tremendously in this process. Former senior planner Leila Namvar was my partner in crime for this until she transferred over to the Public Community Services Department and is now the city's public arts planner. But Leila did a tremendous amount of work on this, working with Alessandra and Simran and Roger. And I would be remiss if I didn't publicly acknowledge her contribution and thank her for all of her hard work, because certainly we would not gotten to where we're at today without her assistance, her enthusiasm, her keeping me on track. So I want to thank her as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. 7, commissioner comments.
My only comment is, do we know when this is going to be in front of city council? Because I would like to be present that day.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I was going to send an email, but I'll just put it on the record. So this is scheduled to go to the city council on August 17th.
Okay.
And certainly the commissioners are invited to attend if you're so inclined. That you can attend obviously in person and or virtually, as is the current practice of the city, both for planning commission, city council, and other advisory bodies. So certainly would appreciate your attendance. And
yeah, if we could maybe get a reminder,
we will
commission meeting just before. I think we should have one maybe the week before that, right?
No, let's see. You have July 27th, and then yes, you would have it August 10th. Thank you. So yes.
Week
So,
before.
so city's not going to go dark like other cities in August?
Well, our city council has a summer schedule, so they have one meeting per month in July, August, and September. So the next council meeting for July is July 20th. The council meeting in August is August 17th, and the council meeting in September is September 21st. So we don't go fully dark, I guess is the best response. So yes, we would certainly love to have the attendance of the commission, as many possible, because certainly would want you to see if the council is supportive of your recommendation, which they usually are. And if you want to speak, you certainly have that right. We have scheduled, like we did for the commission, 2 possible public hearings for the city council. So if they do take action on August 17th, we wouldn't have no need for another public hearing on September 21st. However, if they take action on August 17th, then September 21st would be just a second reading of ordinance action. So we will send you a reminder, and we can also send you a calendar invite if that would be helpful to place on your calendars. So I'll ask for Jessica's assistance in doing that for August 17th. And I just want to say thank you. I really mean it. This has been a lot of work. And from where we started to where we're at is momentous. It was a team effort. The proverbial, even though I don't like the saying, it takes a village, it really did. And we really appreciate all of your attentiveness, holding us accountable, and helping us to deliver, I think, a truly good product for the city, but one that lives with us and that we will revisit in the future as needed. So thank you again.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Adjourned until.
Thank you, commissioners, from our team as well.
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Really, thank you.
We will adjourn till next planning commission meeting on July 27th.
Thank you.